Yes, my name is Shane Housekeeper.
One moment, Mr. Housekeeper. Sorry. You here on behalf of yourself this morning? Do you have counsel present?
Yes, I'm here on behalf of myself.
Thank you. And is the Division of Public Utilities appearing in the hearing? All right. Is there anything from either of the parties before we get started?
I didn't hear any voices when
Uh,
you asked if anyone was here.
I inquired whether the Division of Public Utilities intended to participate. There are a few individuals who work for the division in the room, but they are not appearing at the hearing. And they indicated that they had no intention to do so.
Okay, you're kind of going in and out.
I'm sorry, Mr. Housekeeper. I'll do my best for you to hear me. Perhaps you can turn your phone up and try and listen carefully.
Uh-huh.
So the Division of Public
So are
Utilities,
they there from the South Duchesne Water?
yes, they are here and represented by counsel named Mr. Crapo. Is it Crapo or Crapo? I'm sorry,
Oh,
Crapo. They're here and represented by their counsel, Mr. Crapo.
okay.
And since it's your complaint, we'll go ahead and start with you. Do you intend to offer testimony this morning? That is to say, do you want to testify under oath?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Housekeeper, do you swear to tell the truth?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Do you have a
As
statement?
described out. Oh, go ahead.
No, please. I wondered if you were waiting for a question, but you're free to go ahead and make a statement.
Okay. As described in my complaint, with South Duchesne Water, specifically with Tasha Steed, I've been having issues on communication and getting replies back from them on the concern that I was wanting to go on standby with the water. Either not getting return phone calls or getting different responses that saying that since I have a cabin located on the property, not just land, that I am not able to go on what they call standby.
I understand that. It might be helpful to me if you walk me through the chronology of events. I noticed you attached some text messages and some emails to your complaint. If you could just take me through the chronology, the time you first alleged you requested to be put on standby status or any other event you think that is pertinent to this proceeding, and take me chronologically through what you filed and any events you want to testify about. I think that would probably be the best way to proceed.
Okay, I'm just trying to go here and look through the informal and the formal complaints. That maybe has some chronology there. And also, I'm going to just pull this up here. I just printed. I had sent some proof of evidence of phone texting. I couldn't pull up the phone records per se, but I got the phone texting. Let's see here. If I can get the dates. So some of the texting that I provided was as early as 2015 to Jeff concerning about shutting the water off. I talked to him, and he's been great to work with and talk to, except for he says he's out in the field, and so when I was texting him or talking to him, he said it was the head office that I would need to speak to. I put in many calls to the head office, trying to call them. When I finally did reach, or Tasha Steed called me, she said that they had an employee that unfortunately is not working for them anymore. She was not as good for keeping records or calling people back. So they had to, I guess, get rid of her, and then now she's doing it personally, following up with the customers and on the bills.
Can you tell me
and that's when I had... Oh, go ahead.
Pardon me. Can you tell me the first time you requested that to go on standby status with someone at the company?
Well, I had talked to Jeff about it. I'm going to get an exact date here on the text, just so it's officially. I'm just going through the emails. Do you guys happen to receive those by chance?
I have what you filed. Yes.
What I filed?
Yes.
Does it show the date on those?
Do you not have copies in front of you, sir?
I have the most recent ones that I sent. And I don't know, I sent those on November the 29th.
I have a text message that you filed dated November 7th, 2015. It's a little ambiguous. It begins, "Sorry, I can't talk right now. How can I help you?" There's a response that says, "There's a key to shut the water off. Thanks for letting me know." There's another one from November 7th, 2015 that says, "Is there someone that can shut my water off tomorrow?" You see those?
Okay. Yeah, and then also I had sent some, let me get the exact date here that I emailed, November the 29th. None of those which were earlier. These ones were on October the 26th, 2016. And also February 10th and February 22nd, 2017. Just some more additional text messages. Said, "Is this Jeff? Who is this? Just trying to make sure this is Jeff Duchesne. Yes, who is this? This is Shane. I have left messages at the office for months now and have texted you with other number, and I can't seem to get an answer about my water account. I've been trying to cancel my account or reduce the bill for months, and nobody's calling me back or returning my messages." And then I didn't get a response, and I said, "Hello, Jeff," and he says, "Shane, I haven't seen anybody from the office to get an answer for you as they've been out for appointments. As soon as I hear from someone, I will let you know."
Right. I see that text message, but that's from October 28th, 2016, according to the document in front of me. But I also have some documents dated nearly a year earlier, November 2015. So I'm just trying to get a handle on when you allege you requested to go on standby service. Was it at the end of 2015? Or
on November 2015 is when I spoke to Jeff about it. I spoke to him about shutting off the water, but also spoke to him about going on what they call standby. And from what Jeff said, that's not an issue. I'm out on the field, but I'll contact the office, have them contact you, or we'll kind of go from there. That was the first date that I had spoken to a representative from South Duchesne Water about going on standby or about reducing the bill.
And Jeff told you
shutting the water off completely.
And Jeff told you needed to speak to someone at the headquarters or the main office in order to go on standby service. Is that correct?
Well, Jeff said that wouldn't be a problem. That he'll actually he'll contact them, the office, to let them know of my request.
Okay. So what happened then?
So then I tried to call them multiple times without a response. I did get a hold of Tasha Steed at one point in time, or she got a hold of me, and Tasha's response was that I actually had a property or a cabin on there, and that I did not qualify to go on what they call standby. That only properties with vacant land are able to go on what they call standby. And so I did not qualify.
When did that conversation take place approximately?
That one took place quite later. That's when she had called me about my bill that I owed for about 5 months. I think that would have been about like May of 2017. So I couldn't get anyone to call me to return my calls or anything. So what I did is I stopped paying the bills, because at $40 a month, I feel like I was trying to either shut the water off or go on standby, still waiting for confirmation, still waiting for Jeff or someone from South Duchesne to call me back. So I stopped paying the payments until finally, about after 6 or 7 months past due, is when Tasha Steed from South Duchesne got a hold of me. And that's when I spoke to her about that again. And I told her that I've been leaving messages and calling, and she says, well, we've had a past employee, and I think it was somewhere in the Sandy area. I don't know the name. She said the name, but that wasn't keeping current records or calling people back. And she said, and on my bill, I hadn't been charged any late fees, and that was because of her employee not keeping current records. And she says, in fact, I'm sending out a bill today. You're going to owe all the back late fees, retroactive as today. And when I did receive another bill 30 days later, approximately, could have been up to 14 days, it was handwritten on the bill. Late fee, here's one that says $130, late fee $120. It was handwritten, and she was saying that she's trying to retroactively adjust those bills and charge me for late fees. She was kind of upset at me because I was questioning about going on the standby, and she kind of got a little upset, saying that I do not qualify because I actually have a building on the property.
How often were you receiving invoices or bills from the company?
How often was I receiving what? You broke
bills.
up there.
How often were you receiving bills on regular intervals, like monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly?
No, they kind of seemed like they were kind of sporadically. Sometimes I would see the bill, and sometimes I wouldn't. More specifically is when I kind of stopped paying. I didn't receive a bill for 2 or 3 months, and then I would receive one, and then it would say, hey, you're behind like 3 or 4 months, and that's when I would text Jeff, hey, Jeff, I just received another bill recently, and it shows I'm this 4 months behind. We need to get something worked out or situated here, and get a response back. Whenever I did get a hold of Jeff, he was always out in the field, not in the office. To get a response. And that's why what I started doing is I would text from my regular phone, not get any response. So then I had another phone that I would text just so I can kind of get a text back. And that's kind of what I said. That's why I asked, is this Jeff? I made him try to respond back saying, yes, this is Jeff first, because I wasn't getting text messages back from my personal phone, because it's my assumption that he knew it was me. So then when I text from a different phone, then he would respond. And then he would respond that he still hasn't heard back, or he still hasn't been in the office to talk to anybody, But Jeff, when I did first speak with him, he acknowledged, yes, that I am able to go on standby. Everything was fine about that. He just needs to let the office know and go from there. But when I did talk to Tasha, she just kind of denied that I was even qualifying. In fact, on their response when I did the informal complaint, she did response was that Mr. Housekeeper does not qualify because I have a cabin on the property. And that was actually made in her response.
And just for context for me, you wanted the water shut off because you don't stay at the cabin. No one resides there.
Yeah, no one resides there full time. I really haven't been going there, but I did want water shut off or even on standby at minimum.
Okay.
And they can also even verify that with their records from that day, 2014 of November. I'm sure they've got records of it. Not 1 gallon of water has been used. So since I kind of requested and was speaking with Jeff or South Duchesne Water from that day forward, not 1 gallon has been used.
All right. I understand you're not an attorney, Mr. Housekeeper, so I will ask you with respect to the emails and text messages that you filed along with your informal complaint, your formal complaint, and that you simply submitted to the commission for consideration. Do you want to move their admission into evidence for the commission's consideration at this hearing?
Yes.
Mr. Crapo, any objection?
I can't hear anything if someone's speaking.
We're having a technical difficulty. We'll work on it, Mr. Crapo.
Does that work better?
Yes.
Thank you. We've received his complaint, and the only copies of any attachments that we've received are the 3 that are identified as 3 attachments, and one is a copy of the bill, the postcard bill in May. One is a copy of a letter that appears to be written in late May or early June, and the last one is another copy of the postcard bill in July. And we've not received any copies of any of the text messages that you've been referring to. And we've asked Mr. Housekeeper to produce anything else that he may have that shows he's made a written request, and we've received no correspondence from him. So we may not object to the text messages and the other things you're asking to be admitted, Your Honor, but we'd like to look at them first.
Of course. Mr. Housekeeper, do you have anything to say? Did they ask you for copies, and did you fail to produce them?
No, they had. He did actually mention about copies. Then I actually submitted them. They are on the dockets that I had submitted them. The first 3 or 4 text messages. It is, if you go on the website, you can click on it and you can show that they have been submitted.
Right, I understand. They were submitted to the commission, and we have them, and they are publicly posted. But there's an obligation to provide the other parties with copies. They're not expected to go to our website and pull copies. I think what might be appropriate, if Mr. Crapo is willing to accommodate it, is for us to recess for a few minutes. We will print copies, give you as much time as you'd like to review them, and then reconvene.
Thank you. We may have no objection once we get a chance to look at them, Your Honor.
So, Mr. Housekeeper, we'll be in recess for a few minutes if you don't mind remaining on the line. We're going to print copies of the things you submitted so that Mr. Crapo and his client can review them, and we'll reconvene in probably about 15 minutes. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, we're in recess. Thank you. We're back on the record. Mr. Crapo, have you had an opportunity to review the documents to which I referred?
Yes, I have.
And is there an objection?
I would like to lodge an objection.
Go ahead.
The first document I've been provided is, it appears to be an email from Mr. Houskeeper dated November 29th, 2017, with some attachments of emails. And then those email copies have been blown up so we can read them. I just wanted to note the emails. We have Mr. Schnars here with us, and he has his cell phone with him, and he's reviewed his cell phone records. He still has all of emails and text messages that he receives. He has no record of receiving anything on the first page of this attachment, the October 28th date, and he's not erased anything or changed anything on his text messages, so he doesn't believe that this one was ever received, which is the one that starts October 28, 2006. Is this Jeff? What is this? Who is this? That is not, we've never seen this, and it doesn't show up on Mr. Schnar's phone. The next page continues, has some dates of February 2017, and February 10th, 2017, and February 22nd, 2017. Again, none of these appear to have been received by Mr. Schnars. We don't know which telephone this goes to. There's no telephone number identified, but Mr. Schnars has no record of those on his phone of ever being received. The third page that was provided to us has blue bold at the top, and it has a date, November 7th, 2015, iMessages. It says, sorry, I can't talk right now. How can I help you? And then there appears a response from Mr. Houskeeper. There is a key to shut off the water. And then apparently Mr. Schnars responding, thanks for letting me know. Okay. Those are on Mr. Schnars' phone, and we don't object to the admission of those. The ones for 2014 where it says, hello, Mike, we don't know what that is. And we don't have a copy of that or a record of that. The next page on November 7th, 2015 at 9:09 a.m., it looks like Mr. Houskeeper's writing, is there someone that can shut off my water tomorrow? We do not have any record of that on Mr. Schnar's phone. The next page is October 11th at 11:08 a.m., where it says, thanks, Jeff, for talking with me. Call me in the next day or two when you're available to talk more. Thanks, Shane. We do have that. That is on Mr. Schnar's phone. The later ones from October 26th and November 4th, we have no record of those. And then the emails that are sent appear to be from Mr. Houskeeper to an sdcw7@outlook.com. We don't have any records of those 3 emails. So the ones that we can verify, we don't have any problem with. We're happy for those to be admitted. The ones that we can't verify and we don't see what number they're from or to, we just don't know where they really went. And for that reason, we lodge an objection whether they are ever actually sent or received by a proper person at South Duchesne.
Thank you. Mr. Houskeeper, do you have a response? Mr. Houskeeper, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
Do you have a response?
Yeah, those were for, it says right at the top, Jeff and Jeff Duchesne Cabin. Those were sent to him, and also he's responded back.
Did you use a different number for, I'll just say Jeff, depending on the text message stream that we're reviewing?
They were the same phone number. So the messages that they said that they received, that was the same phone number that was text with the previous messages that he said that they are not on Jeff's phone. So they were sent to the same phone.
Understood.
And so it's kind of odd that they say that they confirm that they received part messages and that they confirm that they have not received the other messages when it's the exact same phone that was text too.
Thank you, Mr. Housekeeper. Mr. Crapo, given that this is an administrative proceeding and specifically a customer complaint, I'm precluded by UAPA and the administrative rules from precluding evidence solely based on hearsay. Your objection is noted, and I think mainly goes to the veracity and authenticity of the documents. We'll admit them for the purposes of being considered, but to the extent you want to bring out those facts to which you alluded with your witness, that would of course be appropriate, and the commission will take those that testimony into consideration in weighing the evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Housekeeper, I'd like you to tell me what it is you want the commission to do before we get there. Do you have anything else you'd like to say on behalf of your complaint?
Yeah, let me, that was just one of the issues that I've had, but let me just, pull up this paper here. So just to clarify, are those being admitted or not admitted?
They're admitted.
On those? Pardon me?
They're admitted.
Okay. And I apologize. Sometimes it seems like the phone's just kind of going in and out a little bit, and I'll apologize for that. So the issue is about going on standby, being able to go on standby and not being able to go on standby. As I said in South Duchesne's response to my complaint, they said that I am not eligible to go on standby because I had a building on the lot, which kind of goes against their tariff, where how I read it, and I think it specifically reads that anyone is allowed to go on standby. With the water. The other issue is having a complete and current read bill, to where I had received a bill with a handwritten late fee of $120 and or $130, with me getting sporadic bills and also not getting a current and correct bill, and I'm getting it handwritten. I'm not sure why the company wouldn't just do it at the time that they accumulated the late fee each month. The bill was possibly late, instead of just waiting for approximately 6 or 7 months late and do it one time. My other issue is why would you even handwrite it? Why wouldn't you just put it in your QuickBooks, have it printed officially on the bill instead of handwritten it? And it wasn't just one time handwritten. I think they said they have two of them there, $120, another one for $130, where they had handwritten them. The other issue that I had is even the late fees themselves. On the tariff, they were approved for an annual percentage rate of a late fee, not just one bulk late fee of $20 per incident. I'm just trying to pull it up here. They had an annual APR that was approved on their tariff, which would actually equal up into pennies or really low dollars, not the high $20 late fee that they are trying to impose.
Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, there's one more right here. Let me just one moment, please. looks like that's it at the moment. There was one more issue I wanted to bring up, but I can't see where I had filed it. So,
All right, then let me just ask you one final question. If the commission is inclined to find the facts favor your complaint, what is it that you want the commission to do? Specifically, do you believe there's any outstanding balance that's owed to the utility or not? And is there any other remedy you seek from the commission?
I don't believe there's any outstanding balance owed. In fact, I have sent payments in to them just to try even though I didn't believe that I owed them, but I just sent payments in to them just so that there is no, no possible problems in the future. I figured I'd rather just go ahead and make payments of $480 here or $500 there, just to go ahead and just kind of go along with everything until these proceedings and stuff are followed and see who's found in favor. They kind of kept on saying, we're going to shut your water bill off and we're going to do this, but the whole thing is they can confirm I've not used 1 gallon of water in the past 2 years, nor the water has even been turned on. As far as what to do, I think they have a major billing issue and problem. My main concern is with me, but also the other customers, that maybe they're imposing $20 late fees when it's not even on the approved tariff. It's the other customers that are maybe asking to go on standby, and the representatives of South Duchesne Water are telling them that they are not able to because maybe they've got a building on there.
Thank you, Mr. Housekeeper.
So it's not only... Oh, go ahead.
Am I correct in assuming that you still wish to be on standby status and to remain so in the future?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, did you have anything else to say?
Me?
Yes.
Oh, not at this time. I just wanted to see if they had any response or if there's...
Well, I'll now allow Mr. Crapo an opportunity if he'd like to ask you questions. He has a right to do that, to cross-examine you based on the testimony you've given. Mr. Crapo, do you have any questions for Mr. Housekeeper?
I do have a couple, Your Honor.
Please go ahead.
Mr. Housekeeper, this is David Crapo. Good morning. I
morning.
wanted to know when you acquired the cabin, what month and year?
What month and year?
Yes.
Would be February 2014.
Thank you. And what's your current address? Where do you live?
Okay, so what's the mailing address? Where do I live, or what's the property address of the cabin?
We know the property
wanna
address for
clarify.
the cabin, but you don't live at the cabin, correct?
Correct.
And so where do you have your mail sent? What address do you use?
4346 Golden Fox Circle, Riverton, Utah, 84096.
Thank you. And how long have you lived there? In Riverton?
12 years.
When you acquired the property, the cabin, in February of 2014, did you buy it out of a foreclosure?
My question is what is the relevance of that?
It will become clear in a moment, but did you buy it out of a foreclosure?
I'm not sure what the status of it was.
Okay. And did
exactly. I don't know what you would be considered.
And when you acquired the property, did you pay any of the back water bills that were due at the time?
Any of the back water bills. So if I'm trying to think of it right, it was not a foreclosure. I think it was a bank-owned property.
Okay. When did you contact South Duchesne Culinary Water and advise them that you were the owner of the property for the water meter and the water receipts? Or did you ever do that?
Did I contact Duchesne Water?
Right. In February of 2014, did you ever contact South Duchesne Culinary Water and say, start sending the water bills to me?
I don't have any records of what date I may have contacted them, or they would have possibly contacted me. I don't have that.
Isn't it true that you didn't contact South Duchesne and they only became aware that you were the owner when they looked at the public land transfer records in late 2014? They had to contact you, correct?
As I stated, I don't know if I had contacted them or they had contacted me.
Okay. In November of 2015, you have these text messages, the ones that we do have copies of, where you contacted Jeff Schnars, correct?
Yes.
And what was your purpose in November of 2015 in contacting Mr. Schnars? Did you need him to help you check the water system? What was your desire from him?
As per the text, I was trying to get a hold of him to have the water shut off.
Did he shut the water off when he came to your cabin that day?
I do believe so. I do believe it was shut off. It's been shut off since that day.
Right. Isn't it true that you actually shut the meter off yourself?
There's the thing in the front yard, the box out in the front yard. I have personally either shut it off with Jeff if Jeff could not make it there to the cabin.
Okay, so
Jeff
you
said he would either have a prior engagement. So I've actually shut it off, and also Jeff shut it off. So
okay, so
that
you
particular time.
So you have a key.
Yes, I did shut it off.
Okay, so you have a key to shut.
No. I do not have a key. No.
Okay, so how did you shut off the water then if you didn't have a key?
So in the instances, if I would call Mr. Schnars and say I'm gonna head up to the cabin, he would either usually meet me out there, or if he says I cannot be there, I've already been out there. I put the key on the meter. The key's right on there. All you have to do is turn it. And he would say, I'm not able to be there, but I'll have the key there. And so he would have a key on the property.
So did you shut
right inside on the meter?
Okay, so did you shut the water off because you just don't want water into your cabin during the winter, or what was the purpose?
So for that time that it was shut off, it was for both purposes. One, I don't want water into the cabin, but also I had no intention on going on into the cabin or wanting the water. I wanted to reduce the bill, and that's when I first had spoke to Jeff about that. Jeff, I don't plan on using or occupying the property. Is there something I could do? Can I just go ahead and shut the water off and have no continued use? He kind of says, well, we can't really just shut it off and without no charges, but they have what they call standby. And this is kind of one of the first times I've learned about it is through Jeff. They have what they call standby, and instead of paying the $40 monthly fee, there's a standby charge, and I do believe it was approximately $15. And this is how it I learned about it, because I did tell him I'm not going to use it. I just wanted to shut it off completely. And he informed me that that wasn't possible, but there could be what they call standby. And from there, that kind of seemed to be the issue. The problem is he confirmed that I was able to go standby, but I think when he was talking to the people in the office, they were not allowing or wanting me to go on standby.
So I just have one question, Mr. Housekeeper, on that. Do you use the cabin at all, or is it just sit empty all the time?
No, I've been there.
And so when you're there, how do you function for your water needs and for the toilet, the bathroom, the shower? Do you just haul in your own water, or what do you do?
No, so That property is in the middle between my home and my mom's home. So when I go there, I'm going there for just a few hours of the day.
Okay, so you don't use any water when you're there ever?
No, sir. No, sir. There's bottled water inside the cabin currently as we speak, but there's bottled water. But
Okay.
there's no water.
Have you ever
And
made
they
a,
have a meter there, and they can verify that there's not been any water used at all.
do you have a written request that you've ever given to South Duchesne saying, I want to be placed on standby? I haven't seen anything, but do you have a written request saying, I want to be placed on standby?
In the text, I have written text saying that I'm still trying to get a hold of the company about my water bill,
Correct.
about trying to get it shut off.
Okay, I've seen the text that were provided to us today where it says you're trying to get a hold for your bill, but did you ever send in a text or a letter or an email and said, South Duchesne, I would like to be placed on standby status?
When I did actually ask about a standby status, Tasha Steed informed me that I'm not able to go on standby status.
Okay, that was an
And
oral.
my opinion that that's why they're avoiding me and not wanting to return my phone calls or messages is because I'm requesting to go on standby status, and they are not wanting or allowing me to.
Okay, thank you. So you talked with Tasha in May or June of 2017, but other than that, you have no record of any written request asking to be placed on standby status, correct?
Yeah, I have the written text messages stating that I'm wanting to. Also, me not paying the bills just because I want someone to contact me. That's how it had to come. No one at the office would contact me or have anything to do with me if I'm paying my bill on time and monthly on time.
Okay,
So I kind of
Mr. Housekeeper,
refrain
you
from doing it.
received.
Actually, I stopped paying the bill just so someone would contact me.
Okay. Mr. Housekeeper, you did receive a copy of the written response to your formal complaint that our law firm submitted on September 27th. Is that correct?
Was it sent to me?
Yes, it was.
How was it sent to me?
It was sent via email, and it's dated the 27th.
From your office, or?
Yes, that is correct.
I didn't receive anything from your office directly, no.
Okay, there's a copy of the pleading, and it's called South Duchesne Culinary Water's Response to the Formal Complaint of Mr. Shane Housekeeper. It's dated September 27th, and it's shown that it was emailed to your email address.
I'll pull it up here on the computer. So if I pull it up here on the computer, there is something in the docket. If I bring up the docket number,
Yes. And
there is something in there.
on
Yes.
September 27th. You've read this document before, correct?
It's not been for months, but yes, I have seen that.
Okay, on page 2, it says that if Mr. Housekeeper can show us a proper request to disconnect, South Duchesne Culinary Water will disconnect the water and will make the adjustments to your bill. Since September 27th, when you received this document, have you made any written request or phone call either to our law office or to South Duchesne requesting to be placed on standby and adjust your bill?
Yes, you actually had contacted me.
I did, and I asked if we could. I asked if we could resolve this, and you said no. So we really can't probably go into trying to settle this. I'm just asking, after September 27th, did you ever make a written request saying, I want to be on standby, let's adjust the bill?
Not a written, but a verbal. You actually called me.
And you told me you would not agree
and you
to
asked
adjust
me
your
what I would
account,
like.
did you not? You said you wanted to have a
Pardon
hearing,
me?
you refused to adjust the account. and you would not accept that proposal.
No, I offered. I offered. You asked me what would it take. I told you what it would take,
Okay.
and I was willing to. And you
Your Honor,
said,
I don't
"Well, I
want to
don't
get
think
into the
my
settlement
client is
discussions
willing
because
to
it
do that."
was a monetary amount that he wanted that was exorbitant for what we felt. And at that point, I don't think it's appropriate to discuss the settlement.
Mr. Housekeeper, settlement discussions are generally considered confidential and inadmissible, so it isn't appropriate for testimony about whatever offers were made or counteroffers were made to resolve this dispute to be heard by the commission.
Okay.
Your Honor, I don't
Well,
have any further
okay.
questions.
I
Mr.
understand
Housekeeper,
that, but
thank you
it's
very
asking,
much. I don't have any further
was
questions.
anything ever discussed after a certain date? And yes, it was. It was discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Housekeeper.
Okay.
Mr. Crapo, would you like to call a witness?
Yes, I would. I would like to, if it's appropriate, Your Honor, maybe proffer just general information that maybe isn't in dispute to give a background, and then on areas of dispute, ask those questions and let the witnesses explain if that's appropriate with you.
No, that's fine. We usually, I should have asked if anyone wanted to give an opening statement. It's usually not something the parties before us are interested in doing. You will have an opportunity to close if you want, and of course now you can do the same.
Why don't I just make a general opening statement with basic proffer information, and then for the things that are important that we think are in conflict based on what Mr. Housekeeper's presented, then I'll just ask Ms. Steed or Mr. Schnars to briefly testify about those items.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes.
As I've stated before, Your Honor, we're here representing South Duchesne Culinary Water. In the, just want to explain who South Duchesne is and what the situation is in this particular matter. In the response that we filed on September 27th, there is an attachment A, which is a copy of the tariff. At the back of the tariff, there is a plat map for the Uinta and the DMR and the UMR, which is the Duchesne Mountain Ranches and Mini Ranches and the Utah Mini Ranches. And you can see the map there of the facility. About 2003, this tariff was filed and accepted, and the creation of the South Duchesne Culinary Water Inc. was created and began. They have approximately 165, 167 cabins. Some of those cabins are occupied year-round. Some of those are just recreational properties or used as recreational properties. So there's about 167 accounts that are open for the $40 fee, which is the standard fee prior to usage. And then there are approximately, I'm going to say 400 or 500 more that are undeveloped lots that pay the standby fee, just to give you a little bit of a background. I have a couple of exhibits on the account of Mr. Housekeeper that were previously provided as responses by Ms. Tasha Steed, who is an assistant to Joan Steed, the president of the company. And probably it'd be best for me just to ask a few questions of Joan Steed and let that be evidence, if that's okay.
Ms.
Can she
Steed.
stay here?
Yeah, that's fine. Ms. Steed, do you swear to tell the truth? Thank you.
Okay. I would like to, Your Honor, direct your attention to the response that was filed by Ms. Tasha Steed on the informal complaint. You have a copy of that, I believe?
I do.
And she has attached several exhibits where she would write a number and then circle it. And the first one is the account of Mr. Housekeeper, and it's a 1 with a circle in the bottom corner. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. And so I'm going to give a copy to Ms. Steed, Joan Steed, and I'll just ask a couple of questions. Ms. Steed, what's your position with South Duchesne Culinary Water?
I'm the president of South Duchesne.
Let's try this other mic. See if it works.
Testing. I'm the president of South Duchesne.
Very good. I've given you a document that's marked number 1 to the response on the informal complaint. Have you seen that before?
Yes, sir.
And do you know what it is?
It's a history of billing and payments.
For which account?
The Houskeeper account,
Okay.
lot 262 in Utah Mini Ranches subdivision.
And I note at the bottom it has a date September 1st, 2014, and then runs up to August of 2017. Is this just shows the dates that there were invoices or payments made on his account?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Could you just briefly explain for the hearing officer, what does this indicate to you generally when you look at his account? Was he making consistent payments?
No, but I would like to step back for just a minute. The only way that we were able to find out who owned that home was for me to do a title search, because we heard nothing from the new owners. Nothing had been done to the house. It's in pretty poor shape, which goes against the homeowners association in that area. There's never been any HOA fees paid as well. But if he'd have made contact with us, or his closing attorney would have made contact with us, we could have made them aware of the HOA as well as the water company and what the criteria in which the property owner is supposed to go by. At the beginning, my husband is the one who handled the majority of the issues or anything coming up with South Duchesne. But my husband passed in June 2014, and so there were many things that I might not have been aware of, that thought I was doing correctly, that it may have been incorrect. But at no point did we have any opportunity to welcome Mr. Houskeeper or have him aware of what we thought were the correct regs. And if we were incorrect, we surely would have found out what may have been incorrect and corrected them. But we had no opportunity, so we had to track this man down. And then the first opportunity I had to even know who he was when my daughter was talking with him. She had returned a call in May, and
Of 2017.
and I shudder right now to thinking of the way he spoke with my daughter. He was unaware that we're...
Pardon me, what was that date and year? Pardon me?
It was late May or June of 2017. It's the phone call you referred to in your complaint where you say that Tasha Steed called you.
So there.
And that was the first opportunity?
Mr. Housekeeper,
contact
Mr.
me?
Housekeeper, unless you can't hear something that's said and you need it repeated, it's appropriate not to interrupt Ms. Steed while she testifies. You'll have an opportunity to ask her questions once Mr. Crapo is through. Okay.
Yeah, her voice is kind of going in and out, and I just want to make sure I'm writing this down and understanding what she's saying.
Go ahead. So, Ms. Steed, you were talking about the phone call that was in late May or early June of 2017, and you were
Yes.
able to hear the phone call. Was it on speaker? Or?
Yes, sir, it was on speakerphone.
Go ahead and just explain what you were hearing.
Due to us having to do our own investigation of trying to find out who owned that home, and then getting no response after billing for months, we always have one or two of us, with whichever company we're involved with, being a witness to the conversation. And so that's why I was sitting there when that conversation took place, and it was belligerent. He said my daughter was nothing but a little peon, that she had no say-so, probably making $8 an hour, and that there was not a thing she could do about it. So what if he paid the bill, what were we going to do for him? And my daughter said, "Sir, I'm telling you what is owed on the bill, and there is a serious delinquent balance on here, and it must be paid. Otherwise, we will have to turn the water off." And then he said something to the effect about he should have been on a standby fee. And my daughter had told him that it was our understanding that if there was a home on the property, it would be the flat $40 fee. And he said, "Well, there is a standby fee, and it's only $15 a month." She said, "Sir, if you actually thought there was a standby fee of $15 a month, then why didn't you pay that?" and he had nothing to say. So anyway, there's more background to this than meets the eye, and I just thought it important that you know this. My husband and I put our life savings into this development as well as into this water system. It cost millions of dollars so that the people in the area would have water and they could live there on a full-time basis. This is not a moneymaker. We're trying to just make sure there's enough funds there in case there's a big break. And so it's like almost like a rural co-op due to that. This is the first time we've had to turn someone off. We have 2 times, and I have another hearing with basically the same thing, the same woman who did not want to pay for years. So I just hope you'll take all of this into consideration, and if there's anything that we've done improper, we want to correct it. I don't want to have anything wrong with this, with our water company. My husband spent a lot of time and money, and this was a big thing for him. He was very proud of this water system. And it was state-of-the-art water system. There was nothing held back on making it the best it can possibly be. So just please take all of this into consideration if you would, sir. And when people don't want to pay, it's very difficult to make them pay, especially when they know how to work the system.
So just one last question, Ms. Steed. On this bill where it shows the $40 month after month, but then no payment coming in, that just indicates that Mr. Housekeeper was not making any payments until you see where it says a negative number, which would be a payment.
That's correct. And the negative number came in after the conversation where the procedure was explained of what normally should happen in turning someone's water off, and if someone still doesn't pay, and how we would go about collecting those fees, and that would be through a lawsuit and a sheriff's sale.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Mr. Schnars a couple questions, if I could. Mr. Schnars, could you state your full name?
I'm sorry.
Oh.
Before we proceed to Mr. Schnarr, let's allow
Cross-examination.
cross-examination. Yes, Mr. Housekeeper, do you have any questions for Ms. Steed?
Yes, I got a question. She said the first time that she's able to communicate with me was between May and June of 2017. And as of they've stated and asked, I've owned the property since February of 2014. How or why is that the first time that they're able to even speak or try to communicate with me?
Do you understand the question, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Until I actually did a title search, which is timely and costly, we did not know who you were.
Okay, so when did you perform the title search? Was that the September of 2014 or July of 2014?
Sometime before September the 1st, 2014. Sometime, it looks like the first billing was
Okay.
September the 1st.
So you said the first time you were able to contact me was between May and June of 2017. So if you knew who I was back in 2014, how come 2017 was the first time you was able to contact me or communicate with me?
Because you had your old address. You had the address of the, you had the address of the property that you are never at. And we don't receive mail at the development. You only receive mail through the post office boxes in Duchesne or in rural addresses. They don't deliver or pick up in the development. And so I had to go to the recorder's office and search and find out who got the property after the foreclosure, and apparently it was you.
Okay, but you received that, you're saying, sometime before September 2014. But in your statement, you said the first time you was able to contact me wasn't until May or June of 2017, approximately 3 years later.
I said the
To
first
notify
contact
me.
I ever had with you was by that telephone call. And sir, I'm talking, so please.
Okay. The other issue I have is I have no knowledge if you are on speakerphone or not, but your statement of me calling her a peon is not true, or even asking what she got or even stating
Your
what
Honor,
she got for
that's
hours
not a
not
question,
true.
and maybe he could just respond in his
Sus-
closing.
Sustained. Mr.
Well-
Housekeeper, it's not appropriate to make statements. Your role right now is simply to ask questions that you have with respect to Ms. Steed's testimony. You will have an opportunity before we conclude to make any statements that you like. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I requested a statement of the payments received and the bills, the payments received and the statements that were sent out. Upon purchasing or having the water turned on, I made a payment that I'm not seeing on that. I do believe it was a $100 connection fee, and I don't see that on your received payments.
Is that a question?
Did you receive that $100 check?
No.
You didn't receive a $100 check.
I think it's been asked and answered. She said no.
Yeah, do you have a more specific question? Can you maybe help the witness understand when you sent that check? Or believe you sent
I
it?
actually I gave it personally to Jeff Snars.
Do you recall when that was made, Mr. Housekeeper?
That was made at the time that the water was turned on. That was part of their conditions of having the water turned on and turned in my name.
Was that in February, September 2014? Do you recall?
That was in 2014. I don't have the exact date.
Do you have the amount?
$100.
Was it by chance part of that $290 paid in late November? Maybe part
No.
of that was $100?
No, because I actually, before water would even be turned on, I actually had to meet them out there in person, give them the money in person, and then the water to be turned on and the account set up.
But you think it was early 2014?
Yes.
Okay. We just don't show a record of it, Your Honor.
And then I don't show a record, and I asked for an earlier record as well. I asked them, I said, there seems to be a few months not posted here, and also the $100 turn-on fee is not posted here, and that was also in one of my responses.
Yes, sir.
Is that we're not getting
Again,
a
you're
full
going to have to
record
wait
of
until
billing.
Mr. Crapo is done putting on his evidence. You had an opportunity to explain to the commission any basis you had for your complaint and make any statement. Now it's Mr. Crapo's turn. You will have an opportunity before we conclude. If you want to say anything else, you'll absolutely have that chance. But I should allow Mr.
I
Crapo.
apologize. I'm not sure exactly how
No, that's fine.
the
You
whole
have-
proceedings are.
Do you have any other
supposed to
questions
take
for Ms.
place.
Steed? Do you have any other questions for Ms. Steed?
Yeah, I have a question. Did they have a person or company that they employed that they actually had to let go because they would not return phone calls or have correct billing issues?
Employ Gomez Incorporated to handle the books, and I believe it was either March or April of 2016 until May of 2017. And no, the reason that we actually did that was because my daughter and I were in a horrific accident, and we both had brain injuries. But then we got better and felt capable and got the books back. And she did make a couple of mistakes, like sending the mail out maybe too soon or something to that effect, but nothing that would have, I don't think, have anything to do with this account.
So you don't remember when you was on speaker on the phone call, your daughter saying that Gomez should have actually charged me late fees every single month and maybe even should have closed the account? And that Gomez, had she been doing her job right, then I would actually have been charged billed monthly with the late fees?
No, sir, I don't remember that.
Okay. But you do admit that you've had some issues with that person or / company with the billing.
I think that's been asked and answered. She
Okay.
said there were a couple of things that were sent out maybe late or early, but nothing aware for this account.
I'll overrule the objection because when she said I even was unclear whether she was referring to Tasha or this contracted service. So if she could clarify.
You mean Gomez Incorporated?
Right.
Okay. So with that clarification, so the question is, were there any mistakes that she's aware of that Gomez Incorporated made?
Right.
Okay.
There were a couple of mistakes, and it appeared that during that period of time, the people that did not want to pay, that's when they had a heyday.
A heyday? Could you elaborate on that? I don't understand.
It's time for people to
People
take
had a
advantage of other people when they're not in the position to take care of themselves.
So there was other people.
No,
possibly that
no, I'm talking
were
about
not
you,
being billed
and I'm
correctly?
talking about the water company.
I'm sorry. Did you have a question, Mr. Housekeeper?
Yeah, was there other people then that had issues with the billing
No.
or with it, or any issues of the late fees or?
I don't know if I understand the question. The question is there anybody else, any other customers that had a problem with the billing during this time period? Is that the question?
Yes, or any other issues with late fees?
You can take them one at a time. Did anyone else have any issues about the billing during this time? So you just answer.
The only other person that I can think of is the one we're going to have a hearing on. And I don't know that I'm in a position to give that name. It might be her privacy.
It's public record.
You can say her name.
The Olsons.
Any other questions, Mr. Housekeeper?
Yeah, I got a question about standby. What is your ruling as far as the standby? Are people able to go there upon request, or if they have a building on the property, or only people that have raw land are able to go on standby?
It was my understanding, as I explained the situation of when I was actually in charge of everything after my husband passed. It was our understanding at the beginning is that with a home on it, it was the $40, and then if it were land, it was $15 per month, and that's an accessibility fee because the water's at the road. And what was the other one?
That was it.
But I've later found out that it is allowed to have the $15, but we must have that in writing.
So would it be safe to say that everyone that has maybe requested prior to me, or prior to when you found out or understood that they are able, has been denied to go on
Objection.
standby?
Objection. It assumes that other people have made requests. You might just want to ask if anyone
Okay.
else has made a request.
The objection is
Has
sustained.
anyone, to your knowledge, made a request?
No, because the majority of the people who own property there make contact with us immediately, or we're actually the people who sold them the property. And at the beginning, we make them aware of what the fee is per month and what the turn-on water fee is, and if it should have to be turned off, and the regulations on that. So everybody was happy to have city water, in a rural area where nobody else has. So no, we
You
haven't.
say at the beginning you'd let them know what the fees are. So then at the beginning you were telling them, since they had a cabin on the property, they had to pay the $40, and they were not able to go on standby then.
No.
So you were so then you were telling them that they are able to go on standby?
Let me just say that no one's asked for a standby.
Okay, but you just told me, you're saying that you told the people that purchased the properties from you, most of them had purchased from you, and you had told them the rules and regulations and the fees, what the fees would be. And if you had told them that they are not able to go on standby, that they had to pay the 40, that's what I'm asking you. You said that you had stated you told them what the fees and
Which we actually did when we started the water company, and we were required to do this. We had to send the regulations out to everyone who was going to be using water, and that's what we did. So everybody had it. They had more information than I did, because I wasn't the one who was actually over everything at the time. My husband was.
So are you saying that it's possibly then that people were misinformed during that 2 or 3 year period?
No, I don't think so.
But you're admitting you thought the rule is that if you had a building on there, you could not go on standby.
Your Honor, she's already answered that question.
Sustained. She did answer that question, Mr. Housekeeper.
Okay.
And she answered it affirmatively that she had a misunderstanding.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question, Your Honor, for her. In the response, they said that I had not filled out, or that, not that I had not filled out one, but you do not have on file a copy, a signature pad. I'm trying to see what the exact terminology that you had used. When someone actually opens up an account, is there something that you guys have in file and record that you have people fill out, like an address form and stuff like that?
I'll go ahead and restate your question for you, if you don't mind, Mr. Housekeeper. I believe what Mr. Housekeeper is asking is whether or not there are typical documents that are used when a customer opens an account, and whether you have any record of such documents with respect to Mr. Housekeeper.
There is a water agreement that everyone signs, and the operator signs it as well, which states what the fees are and such. No, he doesn't have any because he never would come in. This about his mother and all, I don't know if that's true. I haven't had any truth on this account for a long time.
My question is there such an agreement? And I guess the answer is yes, there is an agreement that you have the customer sign when they open an account.
That's what I said. I said, yes, there is an agreement.
Okay. Do you have a copy of my agreement?
You never signed an agreement.
Okay, so my question is since February of 2014 till December 2017, have you ever contacted me or tried to mail me an agreement or asked me to sign an agreement?
My first meeting you was listening to your conversation on the phone. We did not know
That's
how
not
to...
the question. The question is have you?
Maybe meaning, I might just clarify, you mean somebody at the company, not Miss Steed personally herself?
Well, since she's the president, she may have done it, but has she herself or somebody at the company done it correct?
Just to clarify, because I think she's trying to clarify that the first time she personally talked with you or heard your voice was in 2017. But I think your question was more general, Mr. Housekeeper. Has anybody in the company, either Tasha Steed or Jeff Schnars or anybody else, have they ever offered or provided you with a copy of an agreement? Is that where you were going?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
If
sir.
she knows, she can answer. If not, maybe Mr. Schnars could answer. If you know. Do you know if any of the employees or officers of the company ever sent him a copy of the water agreement in 2014 or
No,
15? Do you
no,
know
because
that?
we were at the point, this water system is extremely important. And what I mean by that, and it deals with people's lives. I don't just think about turning water off. That's the last thing we do. And people have to be really behind or a real problem or selling water to somebody else. This is, I know it's a serious situation with with a water system because of the water scarcity here and because of people's lives. And so this is very important to me. And we don't just send contracts out. We don't just take phone calls and somebody says, I don't know that you on the phone. We need a letter. I need something to cover what I'm getting ready to do and say, well, this was the request and this request was approved, and we send them a return letter saying so. So there's a little bit more to it than just buying a house, knowing there's an HOA, which is of record there in the county, as well as South Duchesne Culinary Water. Every title company knows that. And I sure would like to know who closed your property.
That's exactly the point I'm trying to make. Is I met a representative in person at the property from South Duchesne Water, gave them $100 turn-on fee.
Your Honor, I think this isn't a question. If you can formulate a question that she knows about, we'll be happy to respond.
Absolutely, and I'll grant a little latitude because the complainant is here pro se. Was it Mr. Jeff Schnarr that you recall meeting with, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, I believe that Mr. Crapo's intention is to ask Mr. Schnarr some questions, so perhaps the questions you have with respect to that conversation would be better directed to that witness. Is that okay?
Okay.
Do you have any other questions for Ms. Steed?
None at this time, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. We'd like to ask just a few questions of Mr. Schnarr's and then allow Mr. Houskeeper to follow up. Do you have any questions before that?
I do, and with the caveat that if these questions are better directed to Mr. Schnarr, then that's fine, and I'll reserve them. Ms. Deed, does the utility have a voice messaging service of some sort?
Yes, sir, we do.
Does the utility employ individuals who are available to take phone calls during regular business hours?
We're able to take calls 24 hours a day. We do have an answering service, but on the answering service, it gives the emergency number. But what we've been doing recently is if we're not in the office, well, then if someone calls the water number, it'll go to the operator. So we know that somebody gets it immediately, and then they contact us and let us know what the problem may be.
Okay. If it's not with respect to service, if a customer has a billing question, are those calls forwarded to you immediately as well, or someone you employ?
Well, it would have been left on a different phone number. The main number into the office is 738-6400. The water company number is 738-6200.
Okay, so if I'm a customer and I have a question about my bill, which number do you expect me to call?
You would call the main office number,
Okay.
which is the 6400, and that's on the bill.
Okay, and is there someone there during regular business hours?
We're there 24 hours because it's a family deal. I mean, so go ahead.
It goes to a cell phone?
Yes, it goes to the operator, which is a cell phone, and then he contacts us immediately, regardless of what it may have to do with.
Do you recall receiving any voicemail messages from Mr. Houskeeper?
No.
Is there a policy of charging a $100 connection fee for new customers?
Yes, that was the policy. That in the first month's water.
And this is really for context and background for me, and if you don't know the answers, that's fine. Mr. Crapo can help me out. When one of the properties changes hands, how is the new owner notified of the water utilities expectations?
Their realtor should tell them. All they have to do is pull up the subdivision on the county website, and they can pull up the lots, and it pulls up the homeowners association. It pulls up South Duchesne as the water provider.
There's been a reference, I apologize, I think you maybe made a reference to the HOA several times. Are there things in the CCNRs for the HOA that reference the water utility? Are there interlinking obligations between the water agreement and the HOA?
Well, it is as far as, recordings in the county, with the county. They're, like I say, the realtor or the closing should have known to tell them. What we've had happening recently, sir, over the last year, well, since our accident, some people have transferred properties. Many of them were quit claims. This one was a foreclosure, I believe. But many of them were quit claims, where when someone gets a quit claim, as you're aware, it doesn't erase, anything that may be on that property that's still owing. It isn't a warranty deed. Anyway, they're trying to get under the wire, if you will. That's the only way I can explain it, to where we don't even know who they are. The title companies in the area are aware, because we sent them letters, and now with all the realtors actually have a welcome letter to whomever's interested in the subdivision, and it gives information about the HOA as well as the water company and the contacts and the phone numbers and everything.
Is your utility now, or has it in the past, attempted to recover sums from Mr. Houskeeper that were accrued by the former owner?
Oh, no. The bank paid the former owner, paid us the former owner's fees.
I have nothing else. Do you have any redirect?
No, well, maybe just to clarify, there is a homeowners association and there is a water company, correct?
Completely separate, two different corporations.
Okay, but there's recorded documents for both, and their obligations on file with the.
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure that they're separate and distinct.
They are.
Okay. We have a few questions for Mr. Schnars.
Mr. Schnars, do you swear to tell the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Schnars, could you state your full name for the record, please?
Jeff Schnars.
And-
Jeffrey Lynn Schnars, Jr.
Thank you. And how long have you been employed at South Duchesne Culinary Water?
Since 2003.
And what is your position with the water company? What's your job?
I am the water operator.
And what are your duties as being the water operator?
Turning water on and off, running tests, doing bacteriological tests, lead and copper tests, disinfectant byproducts, making sure the tanks are full, driving the lines, making sure there's no leaks.
And do you have a license or certification from the Utah Department of Environmental Quality and the Division of Drinking Water?
Yes, I am a certified water operator.
And does that authorize you to do these types of duties for a culinary water district?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. Do you recall the first time you received any contact from Mr. Houskeeper?
I believe it was November of 2015.
Okay. And did you receive a couple of text messages from him in November?
Pardon me, I didn't hear that date.
November
of
2015. So did you receive a text or a phone call from him in November of 2015?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And do you have copies of those text messages?
I do on my phone.
And do you have that phone with you?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Could you, Your Honor, I'd just like to verify the phone records for Mr. Schnars, and maybe he could show those to you. We don't have a copy, but he could show what he's received from Mr. Houskeeper that tie to the ones that we talked about before. Would that be allowable?
I don't think it would be appropriate for me to review something that isn't going to be admitted into evidence. He's
Okay.
welcome to refer
I'll just
to
ask.
his-
I'll
Sure.
just ask. What's the first date that you received any text message from Mr. Houskeeper?
1 second.
And you're referring to your telephone right now.
Yes, I'm referring to my cell phone.
And have you erased anything off your cell phone?
No, sir. First text message I got was on November 7th, 2015 at 11:08 a.m.
And what was the message?
He actually tried calling me, and I was on a roof, and I texted him back, sorry, I can't talk right now. How can I help you?
What was the response from him?
There is a water key to shut off the water. My text back to him was, thanks for letting me know. He says, I should be able to get it myself, but I will let you know if I can. I put, sounds good. Next, on November 8th, it states, I got it shut off.
And
I
who
said,
wrote that?
That was from Mr. Housekeeper. After that, I just text back in, okay. And then on the 11th, Mr. Housekeeper, thanks, Jeff, for talking with me. Call me in the next day or two when you're available to talk more. Thanks, Shane.
And do you have any other
I have
communications?
nothing else on my phone at all.
Okay. Did you meet with Mr. Housekeeper out at his property in November of 2015?
Yes, I did.
And why did you go meet him out at the property?
I believe it was to turn his water on and make sure there was no leaks under his house.
Okay. And so you met at the property,
Met at the property.
and you met Mr. Housekeeper, introduced yourself.
Yes.
And then what did you do while you were there?
Turned on the water, crawled down in the crawl space, made sure there was no leaks or anything like that, because with the water on, I do not want to drain our system or flood one of our customers' houses, on an accidental situation. South Duchesne will not turn on water unless there is someone available at the house.
Okay. So you inspected the house, went down into the crawl space, checked for any leaks, and when you say turned on the water, did you turn on the water at the meter, which is the South Duchesne meter box?
Yes.
Or at a valve under the house?
South Duchesne meter box.
Okay, so before then it was turned off?
Yes.
And do you know why it was turned off?
I don't ever think it was ever turned on.
Do you know, so you think between 2014 when he acquired the property until November of 15 it was shut off?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. All right. So you turned it on in November of 2015.
Yes.
Have you turned it off since then?
Nope. Have not even been into the house, touched the meter until the other day when I took a picture of the meter showing it was turned off.
So you went and looked at the meter last week,
Yes, on Wednesday.
and was the valve on or off?
It was off.
Do you know who turned it off?
Mr. Housekeeper from the text that I've got.
So you think the text received back in November of 15 where he says, hey, I turned it off, you think that's when he turned it off and it's been turned off since then?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, you don't know if it's been on or off between then, but it's at least off now.
I have not turned it on or off between then.
Okay. Mr. Housekeeper states in his complaint that he talked to you about going on a standby fee of $15 in November of 2015. Did he ask you about that?
He asked, the conversation was there another fee that's paid? And I told him there was a standby fee for empty lots, and he would need to speak to the office.
So you directed him to talk to the office if he had concerns about that?
Yes.
Did you ever tell him, oh, you can have the $15 standby fee, I'll make that change for you?
No, I have no authority to do that.
So you expressly told him to call the office?
Yes, call the office.
Do you know if he ever called the office? Are you aware? You have to be personally aware. Were you aware if he ever called the office after
I
that?
am not aware, no.
Did he ever call you or talk to you again or text you and ask about standby fees after November of 2015?
And not that I see, no.
Okay.
And if he did, it would have been directed the same way. Call the office. I am the field operator. I do not work in the office. I work out in the field.
Your Honor, I'd like to just give an exhibit. It's a picture of his cabin, just so you have context of what we're talking about. May I approach?
Yes.
Mr. Schnars, I've handed you a photograph. Can you identify this photograph?
Yes, this is lot 262 of the Utah Mini Ranches, Phase 6, which is currently owned by Shane Housekeeper.
Okay. And did you take this picture?
Yes, I did.
And when did you take this picture?
I took that picture on Wednesday,
Okay.
last Wednesday.
So is this picture a fair representation of the cabin owned by Mr. Housekeeper in its current condition?
This is a picture of the exact representation of Mr. Housekeeper's house.
Thank you. I'd like to approach with one other photograph, Your Honor.
Your Honor?
Yes, Mr. Housekeeper. Yes, Mr. Housekeeper.
I object to what the condition may or not be. We're actually stating here what the rules and regulations are of the South Duchesne Water Company, not what may the condition or what the property is.
I don't know the purpose of these exhibits yet, and there hasn't been any questions even asked, or nor have they been moved to be admitted. He's simply distributed
Okay.
them. It's
I
inconvenient.
just wonder what the
understand.
relevance of it would be.
Well, I'm going to give Mr. Crapo an opportunity to explain that.
Just so you know, Your Honor, Mr. Housekeeper, the only purpose for these photographs just give you a feel of what we're talking about. And I only asked if it's just the current condition so you're aware of what it is now. I'm not making any argument or allegation of quality or lack of quality, just is it accurate as a picture? And the reason I wanted to present it is just to show that it is a cabin. It is located in Utah Mini Ranches. It is unoccupied. And just so you have a flavor for what we're talking about, it's not a residence in South Sandy, something like that, okay? And so I just want to go to the next picture. And can you identify this picture, Mr. Schnars?
This is a picture of Mr. Housekeeper's water meter. You have the top of the meter, and then over here up in the top left-hand corner, you can see where the valve is, and it is in the position of off position, which is crossing the actual pipe.
And did you take this picture?
Yes, I did.
And where is this box located in relationship to the house picture we looked at?
It is
Cabin.
located probably 200 feet east of the house, directly east of the house. I was actually standing at the meter when I took this picture.
Okay. And you say the meter is in off position.
Meter is in the off position.
And did you turn that into off position?
No, I did not.
Okay. Your Honor, I'm just going to ask for admission of these two photographs just as way as background information. The meter is currently in off position. Mr. Schnars did not put it in off position, and it just shows generally where it's located in relation to the property in Utah Mini Ranches, or Utah Mini Ranches, excuse me.
They're admitted. Thank you.
Your Honor, I don't have any further questions for Mr. Schnars at this time. I open up for cross-examinations. I might have a follow-up depending on the questions.
Mr. Housekeeper, do you have any cross-examination for Mr. Schnard?
Yes, I do, please.
Go ahead.
Mr. Schnars, you said the first time that you had met me was November the 7th, 2015. Is that correct?
That was the day I met you to turn your water on. Yes, sir.
Okay, but I do believe that the council had asked when was the first time that you had met me.
I cannot recall. I believe that was the first time.
Yeah, I think that's what you told the council was the first time you had met me was November 7th, 2015 to turn on the water. And I just want to clarify and make sure, didn't you meet me in 2014 in actuality, in summer of 2014 to turn the water on?
I cannot be sure.
When in fact, I had met you before in 2014 to turn the water on.
Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you remember in actuality in November 7th, 2015, you were supposed to meet me out there to turn the water off and not actually turn the water on
No, I don't recall
for
that.
the winter? Okay. You had told the council that you came into my property and that you turned the water off. Is that correct, in 2015?
No, sir, I turned it on.
You turned it on. Wouldn't you say most customers that don't reside there year-round would actually turn the water off? During
Nope.
the-
Objection. It calls for speculation of other individuals.
Overruled. If in your experience there's a more common practice among customers, you can answer the question.
The common practice among customers is that they leave their water on at the meter, and if they are going to shut their water off, they'll shut it off underneath the house where there is a shut-off valve, not contact South Duchesne and have them shut it off.
I guess my question is wouldn't customers traditionally shut it off for the winter that are not staying there and then turn it back on in the summer?
Asked and answered.
Sustained.
Okay, I apologize. I couldn't really hear. So I just wanted to make sure it was clear. Your Honor, I don't know. I just want to. I don't know how I do it, but I think he's got his timelines backward, not purposely, but I think he's got his timelines. Is there any way that I would bring that up and maybe he could refresh his memory?
Well, you can ask him a question, which you've done, and I think, as far as I can tell, it appears as if you have a difference of agreement or a difference in terms of your recollection. If you have a document you could offer to show him that you've submitted to the commission, we could put it in front of him and let him review it.
Okay. Mr. Snars, do you remember meeting me out there for the first time in 2014 and me giving you a check for a turn-on?
Mr. Housekeeper, as I said, I only remember meeting you out there on November 7th to turn your water on.
Okay. Because in your text, you said you had the text messages, and it said, I got the water turned off. Is that correct in your text messages?
That you got the water turned off, sir.
Correct. So my question is to you is why would you come in on the 7th and then turn it back on if it looked like what the whole thing we're trying to accomplish is get the water shut off?
Mr. Housekeeper, on the 7th, I turned the water on for you. On the 8th is when you said you got the water turned off due to the text messages between you and I.
Your Honor, I'm going to refer to the papers. I'm looking for those text messages.
That's fine. Take your time.
So on November the 7th, on the text message, it says at 11:09 a.m., November the 7th, 2015, Jeff, is there someone that can shut my water off tomorrow? Question mark. Do you show that message?
No, sir,
Do you
I do
have
not
that
show that
message?
message.
Do you have that submitted to you there at the court there?
Your Honor, this is a copy of the page that was given to me. It's not identified, just November 7th, 2015, 11:09 a.m., and there's a green box that says, is there someone that can shut my water off tomorrow? I'll pass it to Mr. Schnars.
I've never received this message. See, I'm seeing on the documents that he's sending, I've got two different things up here in the top. I got one that says Jeff Duchesne Cabin and one that just says Jeff.
Mr. Housekeeper, is the
So
answer?
you cannot remember that I was requesting to have the water shut off and that you couldn't make it there, but you was there and you left the key at the meter
I believe I
to
forgot that
enable
key.
me to shut it off myself because you wasn't able to make it?
I believe I forgot that key there when I turned it on the 7th because I was in the process of doing a roof.
Mr. Snars, when you meet somebody out there for the first time, do you accept checks or money for water turn-ons?
And do I?
Yes, sir.
I try not to accept anything for the company. I usually try to make everything be mailed into the company.
But in the extenuating circumstances, have you taken a payment?
Yes.
Do you know if my water was on in 2014 at all?
I do not know that because I'm not the one. I can't answer that question. I do not know.
You do not know. Was you employed in 2014
Yes.
with South Duchesne? Hello?
He said he was employed.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't hear a response. Are there any other water operators with the company that do turn-ons?
Yes, there is.
May I ask who they would be?
It would be Robert Raber.
Could you spell his last name?
Raber.
Mr. Schnars, you do not remember me calling you multiple times
No, I do.
asking about being on standby, and that you had told me that that you was not in the office and you was out in the field, but when you get to the office, you would give the office the message about me being on standby?
No, I've never agreed to put you on standby, Mr. Housekeeper. I've always told you to get a hold of the office. I think
I
do not have books in front of me.
Maybe you misunderstood my question. I'm not saying you agreed. I'm just saying, could you acknowledge that I had called several times on your cell phone asking to either reduce my bill, to shut my water off completely, or to be put on standby? Not saying that you've got the capability of doing that, but you said you would contact the office.
No. I did receive phone calls from you, and some of them were also to do contract work on your cabin.
So the text messages that were presented before you, you've received some of them, but not all of them.
Your Honor, let me pass these down to Mr. Schnars and let him. I made a representation as to what we had records of receiving. Maybe he can look through and see.
And Mr. Housekeeper, yes, I have received some of them, but not all of them.
Could you please let me know which one you've received?
Mr. Housekeeper, on my phone, as I have stated, on November 7th, I've got a phone call from you. I was on a roof. I sent you back a common text that, just give you notification that I was acknowledging you. Sorry, I can't help right now. How can I help you? There is a key to shut off the water. Thanks for letting me know. I will be able to get it myself, but I will let you know if I can't. Sounds good. I got it shut off. Okay. Thanks, Jeff, for talking with me. Call me in the next day or two when you're available to talk more. Thanks, Shane. That is what I have on my cell phone.
So on that statement, on that text message, you agreed that you received that one, correct?
Yes. And then
So in that text message, I'm stating to you that I shut the water off, but you're claiming that you say that you turned it on. Did you turn it on later that day or the next day, or when did you turn it back on?
Mr. Housekeeper,
And why?
Mr. Housekeeper, as I have stated, I turned the water on the 7th. You, according to your own words, have shut it off on the 8th, dated on this text.
Why would you shut the water off on the 7th?
Your Honor, I'm just going to object. Mr. Schnarr said he turned the water on, not that he turned it off. And he's asked and answered that multiple times.
Yeah, the question misstated the testimony. Do you have another question? So the objection is
Why would
sustained.
he turn it on the 7th? Was there a request from the office?
If you know, do you know why you went there to turn it on?
I don't know. I believe it was a request from Mr. Housekeeper to turn it on.
Mr. Housekeeper, anything else?
Pardon me, I didn't hear that. What did you say, Mr. Snars?
I believe it was a request from you to the office, Mr. Housekeeper.
So the office had told you to turn it on?
I believe so, yes. I believe it was actually Mike Schnars that had contacted me to turn it on. I can't remember.
Okay. That's all, Your Honor. I don't have any further questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Housekeeper. And I have some follow-ups, and I don't know whether they would be better directed to Mr. Schnars or Ms. Steed. If you'll allow me the latitude, I'll just ask the question, and you can choose your witness. Would you prefer to do redirect now or after my question?
After your questions, Your Honor, and we'll try to field them to whoever is most appropriate to answer.
Thank you. So can the company tell me when the last time any water was used at Mr. Housekeeper's residence?
I'm going to believe November 7th, 2015.
Have you reviewed invoices to confirm or the log of the meter readings to confirm whether that's the case?
That is the case.
Based on your memory or based on something you
Based
reviewed?
on when the water was shut off, and I've never been back there to turn the water on.
If I might follow up, Your Honor, though, if that's when it's shut off, have you done any readings to see
Yes.
if any water has flowed through that meter from November 2015 to present, right? Is that where
Correct.
you're going?
Yes, and no water has flowed through that meter.
To your knowledge, was there water flowing in October of 2015?
I don't recollect, sir.
Do you have any documents that you've reviewed to indicate whether? What I'm interested in knowing is whether Mr. Housekeeper used any water at the premise between the time he acquired the property and this date of November 7th, 2015.
I've turned it on November 7th.
But have you gone back to see? Can you go back? Can you go back and see if there was any water usage prior to November of 15?
I cannot, no, sir.
The company doesn't keep a written record when it reads the water meters?
It can, but I just don't have it with me.
I understand. What is the company's position about the sums owed by Mr. Housekeeper as of today?
Do you want me to answer? Can I answer that, Your Honor?
Anyone? Sure.
Our position is that if he had made a written request and asked to be put on standby, that we would have honored that. When we review, has been admitted already, there was a mistake in what Ms. Steed thought, that it was only for lots for standby, and on the call in late May, early June, it was communicated that it was only for lots. And we've indicated we'd be willing to go back to that date and recognize that as a request, change his billing to $15 from that date going forward, and make that revision. We have run a spreadsheet of doing late fees. The typical practice was just to follow, I think, other areas and just do a $10 late fee for ease. The company realizes that under the tariff it should be a 1.5% penalty or late fee, and then 1.5% or 18% per annum for interest on undue amounts. We've run a spreadsheet on that, and it shows that he would owe about $84 in penalties and fees, not the $120 that was referenced earlier and the $130 that was referenced earlier. But I believe if we go back and change to a $15 fee starting in June or July, whatever would be the billing cycle, I'd have to run it, but I think it's pretty close to just about even. There may be a few dollars owed or a few dollars under, but it's pretty close to even if you factor in the late fees under the 1.5% and the interest.
And I'm sorry, will you repeat the date the company would be willing to go back to in terms of making the standby status retroactive?
We believe the request of the call was either early June or late May. And so typically, had there been time, we think we probably wouldn't have been able to make the change on the June billing. So we've been thinking that July would be the first billing that would be appropriate. But if we feel that if it could be of June, we'd be willing to go back to June whenever that call was ever made.
Of which year?
Of 2017. We don't have a voicemail record or of the date, but in Mr. Houskeeper's informal complaint, I believe he says he thought it was made in late June, maybe his formal complaint, late May. And so we think the call was late May or early June.
And so it goes without saying the company would be willing to allow Mr. Houskeeper to proceed on standby status from this date forward.
Yes, based on the request and in the informal complaint, when the water company came and we reviewed the tariff, if you look on page 3 of the tariff, the very first sentence says the standby fee applies to lots. That's what was always believed by Ms. Steed when she became responsible. But there's a second sentence that says where the service has been disconnected by the company at the request of the customer. They've interpreted that meaning they want a written request so that they don't have just somebody saying shut it off. And the third one is, or if it's been involuntarily shut off by the company after a proper notice to disconnect. So it appears there's those 3 ways that you can go on to a standby fee, and we'll honor that.
Mr. Capo, have you had an opportunity to review the memorandum that the Department of Commerce, the Division of Public Utilities, filed in this docket on September 27th?
Of 2017?
Yes.
I don't think I've seen a memorandum from the department. We saw what was written in the informal. I believe there was a letter written to Marilee, but I don't believe I've seen anything other than a response, I believe, from Ms. Marilee Wright, saying that I think what I've seen is that there was a document sent in for an informal complaint, then there was a response by Ms. Tasha Steed, and then Ms. Wright saying to Mr. Houskeeper, this has been filed. If you want to proceed, it'll have to be at a formal. I think that's the only thing we've seen.
All right, I'll hand you, Sherry, would you mind handing Mr. Capo my copy so you can review this? I'll represent to you. This was filed with the Public Service Commission on September 27th.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay. Are these just placed on the docket, Your Honor, and not given to the parties?
Yes, and I noticed that there's not a certificate of service or a CC noted.
I've reviewed it, Your Honor. Do you want me to comment on it?
If you'd like, it would be helpful to me, and specifically their
Recommendations?
Yes.
Yes, I see that. Okay. It talks about the billing cycle, and it talks here about being a billing cycle that should not be quarterly. That is inaccurate. The billing cycle is monthly, and you can see under the account that there was one that was mailed out every month, and we bill on a monthly basis. So that I don't know where they're thinking of a quarterly assignment. There have been situations where individuals do not pay their bill, and they have to resolve that. At that point, the company usually enters into an agreement to say, because you're behind and you haven't been paying and you're not consistent, what can we do to help you be consistent? And they have entered into a couple of agreements where they go quarterly, because the person wants to just get a bill every 3 months and not have to worry about it every month because of receiving no mail directly in there. There's also been a situation, as you know, for tomorrow, where a recommendation was to go on a biannual basis to make the billing easier for the company. But for everyone else, other than those few situations, it's a monthly bill and it's a postcard that's sent out. So for that, we would disagree, and I believe the evidence here would suggest otherwise. The next one is the division is saying they feel that the billing appears that it wasn't consistent. All we can say is that we send out a postcard billing. That's how they do the billings. And they send out a postcard billing every month. They try to send them out the first of the month. There may have been a time or two where they were not sent out timely. But we send them to the best known address, and we hope that they get there. That's our understanding. During the time of the accident that Ms. Steed testified that she had, there was a company called Gomez Corporation that was hired as a bookkeeper to run the bookkeeping for the utility while they were receiving medical care during that year. We believe there were sometimes mailings may or may not have been sent out as accurately as they could have been, but we think it was isolated because most of the other bills were being paid currently, and we only have a couple of accounts that state that they had any problems. This one and the one that you'll hear tomorrow. So we just don't think that there were consistent problems on the others. As for the late fee of the $10 per fee, we've already talked about that. We admit that that was a mistake. Ms. Steed and her assistant had been saying to people that were late it would be a $10 fee because they felt that's what the other utilities were doing in the area and it was appropriate. Once we'd reviewed that with them, we said we need to have you go back and change that to be 1.5% of the late fee and then an interest rate of 18% per annum. That has been corrected. The argument of writing on the postcards, for whatever reason, the utility has a system that will generate the postcards and generate the invoice accounts, but it will not allow for the imposition of an interest into the printing. And so if they ever have to do a late fee, it has to be handwritten on to the postcard. And unfortunately, they don't have any other system that allows them to do that. They thought they were doing it correctly by writing it on, at least notifying, saying this is a late fee. We're checking and having them check on seeing if there's any other software they can get that can correct that and allow. Candidly, they don't have late fees very often, or they just ignore it and don't charge the person and just say, well, if you get it in pretty quick, we'll be okay. As you can see on the account that was given to you, they were not imposing late fees in their system. It was just a manual thing that they keep track of. So because of that, we think it's appropriate to go back and adjust from when Mr. Houskeeper called, put it on to $15. We don't believe a penalty should be imposed for the sending of the postcards. We believe that's properly done every month. We don't believe that a penalty should be imposed for writing the late fee on the card because they can't print it on, and there's nothing in the rules that I'm aware of that says that it has to be printed. It could be written, just that it has to be identified. We acknowledge there was a mistake in the total fee. The difference, and I've run a spreadsheet I can present to you, we think the difference is $84.17 would be under the 1.5% rather than the 130 less the 10, 120. We acknowledge that mistake, and the company's making corrections to make sure that's properly identified. We believe there's only a couple of accounts where this has ever occurred because everyone else is paid. Other than that, I don't know if there's anything else that the division has recommended that I have not addressed. Is there something I've failed to address, Your Honor?
Not to my knowledge at this time, no.
Okay.
I have sort of a more esoteric question, and it's definitely for you. And if you're uncomfortable answering or don't know the answer, that's fine. I'm new to the rural water utility world. I mostly work in electric and gas regulation. Customarily, if a new resident purchases a home, they'll call a utility, establish an account. If they fail to do so, presumably the former owners are going to continue paying the bill, or will call and affirmatively terminate the relationship, and the service will just stop.
Right.
My understanding is that in this situation, there was no agreement executed between Mr. Houskeeper and the utility. Is there some document that created an obligation, anywhere, and perhaps there's something in the tariff, and that's why I asked about the HOA CCNRs, that would have created a legal obligation on the part of Mr. Houskeeper to pay the standby fee?
Right. I'm not sure I know the exact answer to that, Your Honor. I'd have to review the tariff. The tariff does talk about the lots. You'll notice the tariff, I may be speaking out of turn because I really do need to research it.
Okay.
But my understanding is if you look at the last page of the tariff, you have the subdivision. And I think the concept was these are all the lots that are subject to the water for this water company to be built with all of the tanks, the piping, etc., and that every undeveloped lot will pay a $15 fee so that you have the water system. And that it was recorded, it was the tariff, and that would just happen. Then if you're going to step up to be a $40, you would connect. You'd pay the $3,000 whatever dollar fee it was for an initial connect with a meter, and you'd be off to the races receiving your water. And I think that was the theory behind the economics to allow for the development and for the water company to come into existence. Now, have I researched that and can say I'm 100% sure? No, but that's my understanding.
Thank you. All right. Is there anything else in terms of a witness, Mr. Crapo?
No, but I've neglected to ask to admit a copy of the billing. It was attached in the informal complaint. I believe you have that. I'd like to ask that the billing be admitted as a record of the company that Ms. Steed testified to.
You're specifically referring to the register
Yes, the QuickBook register.
that was attached to the informal complaint.
Yes,
It's admitted.
thank you.
I've got a question concerning his statement about the handwritten late fee on the statements.
I was just going to turn to you. You have a question for a witness, Mr. Houskeeper?
Well, was it the attorney that was speaking?
It was. If you want to make an argument, I was just going to invite you to make a closing argument. Would you like to do that, or do you have a question? In other words, do you want to make a statement, or do you have an actual question you want an answer to?
I guess a statement.
Okay. Then we'll go ahead
He had
now.
argued that.
Excuse me. We'll go ahead and allow you to
He
make
had
your closing statement at this time.
Thank you so much, sir.
Go ahead.
He had argued that the handwritten fee, there's no rule against doing a handwritten fee. But one of the issues besides the handwritten fee is that he accumulated multiple fees over multiple months on one bill. And the bills are supposed to be set out accurately every month and accurately, not to accumulate them at one point in time after maybe a 6 or 8 month period or whatever that period may be. And as far as the late fees go, my question about that is not only myself, but also the other customers who maybe have been imposed the $10 late fee rather than what's on the tariff at the 1.8% or the 18% annual. which again would refer back to the bills not being accurate or the statements not being accurate or sent out correctly. In concern with Mr. Jeff Snars, he said that he actually turned the water on in late November, which he may just got it confused. The water was actually being turned off, when in fact my water was turned on in the year 2014, and I had used water in 2014. Met Mr. Snars in 2014, gave him a turn-on fee, which I don't show that in the payment schedule. So my argument is I don't even see the payments being made as far as when my account was actually turned on, and I don't see the payments being received when I actually paid the turn-on water fee of the $100, which is customary to the company. And quite frankly, they wouldn't turn it on unless a customer had paid it. My argument to the president, saying that she doesn't know who I am and she just doesn't do stuff over the phone, when in fact I met a South Duchesne representative out there in 2014, met him in person. He did come into the property. He did inspect it in 2014, and I did give him a check. That was the time that I met him, got the account set up. So if there was some kind of water agreement to be filled out, one should have been done so then. That was a great opportunity, and that was in 2014. As I said, that there had been multiple text, phone calls, and emails sent to Jeff, the company, and also Mike. And in the emails, it was directed to South Duchesne Water about getting my water shut off. Or, as Jeff had mentioned, the possible standby. Water has been shut off since November of 2015. Not 1 gallon of water has went through that meter or went through the cabin since then. They verified this. My dispute is that I requested it. Should the court allow that, for that date of November 2015, the water company would not be out anything because I have not used any water from that date forward. The late fees were charged as a lump, written on the bill for $120 to $130, when the actuality should have been the 18% annum. My concern is for myself and also any of the customers with South Duchesne Water that this may have been an ongoing issue. He said that they thought the $10 bill was what everybody else was paying as a late fee, and that was adequate, but did not refer to the tariff. It's to my understanding that's what the tariff is there for, is for them to refer to and go by what the tariff states, not to just charge what they feel is right or possibly what other people are charging. With them also writing that, I don't think that the statements are correct by writing one lump fee as far as the late fees. I think that if they were supposed to be honored, they should be correct monthly, every month that they are sent out. Also, I don't think the bills should be sent out sporadically. I think if the tariff says they are to be billed monthly, they should also send out the bill monthly, not have 1 or 2 or 3 months where they don't send it out and then continue on mailing them out. The standby issue, Even with my informal complaint, the representatives at South Duchesne Water were saying that I am not able to go on standby because I have a building. It's a concern for myself and also other customers who may have requested it or may have been told incorrect information when they made the purchase. As she stated, Joan stated that they would inform the new purchasers that this is the fees, this is what it's due, and not had even given them the option to go on the standby. I think these properties there are, as she said, some are for long-term residents full-time, and some are just for the summer, and not giving other residents or people that own the properties the chance to go on standby would affect them financially. I'd like to point out that the lack of records with not even having the water agreement, where I met with somebody out there, gave them a money and funds that are not even showing on their statements, and they don't even show that I actually have signed a water agreement. So that shows lack of records being kept there. With me giving funds to them, and they're not showing it then on their accounting schedule, funds to turn on, which is a standard practice of a $100 fee, they're not even showing records of receiving that, which they would not even turn on my water unless those funds are paid. So it shows that the company has lack of records with the water agreements, lack of records receiving phone calls or texts, or the ability for customers to even have somebody of contact. Voicemail was left and received, but no phone calls were ever returned until my account got delinquent. This was done purposely, maybe not correctly, but I believe today that if I had still just been continuing paying the payments, this still wouldn't have not came to a head. I think there should be a more accurate accountability for the process, the bills. I had no realtor tell me about the process or who I should contact about the water bill, nor it is possible I didn't know until they had contacted me. But when they had contacted me, I did meet with a representative face-to-face, give them funds, give them money, and at that time they could have had, for their records, the chance to do the water agreement. I've got the text proof that I cannot change, showing that it was Jeff. He said he received some and not the others, where I cannot change the dates and the timestamps. Once they're on your phone, they're just screenshots. Nothing had been changed. Nothing has been altered. Jeff has agreed to receiving half of them. There's no reason why that he should not have received all of them, especially since there is responses from him in there as well that are time-stamped and dated. Also, the emails were time-stamped and dated. I feel like Mr. Snars is just trying to not overstep the boundaries and disappoint the company he works for by stating that it was spoken between him and myself about going standby. And I would like to ask for the courts to go back as far as November, from when I showed the text about shutting the water off, going on standby, and also adjusting any and all late fees to zero, since had I should have been put on standby since then and only being billed at $15 a month instead of the 40, the account would have been current and had never have had any late fees. Also, with the point where if they don't even have a signature card stating of my agreement to any fees at all or any payments at all to the company of South Duchesne, they have no records of any said contract at all, that I'm liable for anything. I'm not trying to get out of paying the company, which I already paid for the first year and a half, 2 years. Just trying to pay what's fair, what's requested from November 2014 forward. I would hope also that they would reflect and look on back past records of people that possibly were overcharged late fees, other people that was also overcharged that would have requested to go on standby.
Thank you, Mr.
And also
Houskeeper.
possibly update their system where they would not have to do handwritten notes on official statements and records. Also, so just so that the whole community over there in South Duchesne is aware that they should also maybe send out letters letting them know of the correct late fees, letting them know also of the correct ability to go on standby should they wish to.
Thank you, Mr. Housekeeper. Was there anything else?
That's it. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. It's not easy to do this over the phone. Let me ask you one question, and I apologize for doing it now. I should have asked it earlier. But Mr. Crapo admitted into evidence shortly before you began your closing statement a register that was attached to the company's response to the informal complaint, I believe. It's a monthly register from their accounting software showing, I think, your account and the monthly charges and then various payments made. Do you know which document I'm referring to?
I'm not, but I could check to see if I could find it. I know that they had sent me a payment history record. Is that what kind of what you're referring to? That the company had sent me a payment record history?
It's a billing and payment record history, correct?
Let me see. Is it like a QuickBooks dated 8/14/2017? It's a QuickBooks balance details UMR 262 Housekeeper. It's got a number 1 circled onto it on the bottom left.
Yes, correct. And there's some written handwriting off to the side.
Yes, I do have
It
that,
says
Your Honor.
13 MOS, MOA payment 10 per month, L period, F period. You see that document?
Yes.
Okay. I understand your testimony that you submitted $100 to an individual who met you in person at the time your service was connected, and that is not reflected in this document. Are there any other payments that you made that are not reflected in this document, to your knowledge?
Your Honor, I'm not positive, but I do believe that there was other billings that should be on here. They're showing the first billing is September the 1st. And it's to my recollection that I met somebody out there 2 or 3 months prior to that, gave him the $100 for the turn on, and also that I had been billed before that and made payments before that. That was one of the questions to one of my responses. That was my response to their invoices is, the first invoice they're showing is September the 1st, when in actuality, I believe that I was billed before that and that I had made payments before that, also along with that $100 turn-on fee.
Okay. From September 1st, 2014 forward, does this document appear correct to you?
Do you mind if I just look at it for 1 second? Is that okay?
No, of course.
Okay. So on the document, as far as the hard numbers looks like they may be correct, but on to the side there's handwriting. It says 5 months no payment. I don't think what they're calculating is when I make a payment of $290, that was actually being paid forward.
Okay, well,
I had made a payment for $290 and $120. What I was doing is I was making payments in advance, nothing behind. Because even as they're stating on this document, which I don't think is showing all of the charges or payments, as far as September the 1st, there's a $40 charge, a $10 charge, which I'm not sure what that is unless that's their late fee. So I was being charged wrongly on the late fees clear back as September 2014. But also, they're saying that they have to handwrite it. But here, why is it written off the computer, the $10 fee, but not in, handwritten as they say that they have to? But if you add up the 40, the 10, the 40, and the other 40, you're at $130. And I made a $290 payment. So as I was saying before, they're saying I'm 5 months no payments. Well, that $290 payment divided by 40, that's over 7 months payment. And that's what I had been doing in the past. Their argument is that I was late, or maybe they're insinuating I had no money or something. I'm not sure why they're saying that. But the major bulk of the problem was I was paying more than most of my months, but the problem is when I asked to go on standby or asked to even totally cancel out the water, is the question that I presented before Jeff Snars is, can I just cancel, not have any water, not have any charges, just have this as a cabin? And he said that's not possible, but you're able to go on standby. And this is the first that I have learned of that, $15 standby. And then that's when I started to try to do that. And like I said in the past before, maybe that wasn't the right way to go about it, but I could never get any response from this company, text, phone call, or email, unless I stopped making the payments. And then that's when I first got my first response from this company.
okay.
It was not maybe the best way for me, but I believe if I didn't, I'd still be in limbo on the situation.
Thank you for your response. So if I understood you correctly, you disagree with portions of the handwritten comments, but with respect to the electronic portions of the document, insofar as the amounts that it reflects that you paid after September 1st, 2014, those are correct.
Yes, from September 1st, 2014. I do believe that I was billed and charged and paid before that.
I
But
understand.
from that September 1st on, that does look, as far as I can tell, that looks accurate.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Crapo, anything?
I want to respond to several different items, if I might. I'll try to stay in some order, but I may bounce around. First of all, I want to talk, and I'll try to respond to Mr. Houskeeper's comments as well as the division's comments under topic. And I want to talk first about the billing on a monthly basis, because the division is saying, well, we don't think that the company's sending out monthly bills as they should. They should be quarterly, or that they thought it was quarterly. Mr. Houskeeper never mentions that he thought it was a quarterly billing. He just says he didn't get some. If you look at his own complaint, his formal complaint, he attaches 2 billing cards, one from the June and one from the July. He apparently got those one month and then the next month. They show the monthly billing, they show the balance forward, they show the invoice number, they completely meet the requirements of the rules and regulations. I think the evidence shows the cards were going out every single month. The testimony from our witnesses is they're sent out every month. He was never on a quarterly basis. It was always a monthly basis. He may not have received a few cards. Maybe that is because he misplaced them or missed them in the mail or something happened, but they were mailed out unless it may have been a mistake from Gomez Company to miss a mailing. But they were going out every month, largely without exception. So I don't think there's any reason for the division to think they need to impose a penalty for not monthly billing, and I don't think there's any argument for Mr. Houskeeper on that particular issue. The next issue is the late fees. As has been explained, the computer system for generating the cards cannot print a separate line that identifies late fee. And because of that, the company has handwritten those on and says late fee. The rules say if you have a late fee, it has to be identified as a late fee on your card. It was. So the identification, handwriting it on, there's no violation there. The question is the late fee correct or incorrect at a $10 a fee month? We've admitted it was incorrect. The tariff that is on file since 2013 says it should be a 1.5% penalty, which is 60 cents if it's a $40 charge, and then it's 18% per annum, which is 1.5% per month, which then is 60 cents for every 40. But if it's more than that, then it starts going up $3, $4, $5, $8 a month in interest fees. We acknowledge that mistake. As you will note on the summary of the account, which shows the bills going out every month, and the summary which has been admitted to be correct on those numbers, no late fee is included in the numbers other than maybe the one back in 2014 of the 10. So that 130 has never been recorded here, and we have not sought to collect it since this matter was raised by Mr. Houskeeper, and we went and reviewed the tariff and are making corrections internally. So for that regard, we believe that the late fee issue is being corrected and will be corrected on anything going forward. Candidly, this is a very small rural utility with very few customers, and most of the customers just pay every month when they get their card, and it's not a problem. It's very rare that there's ever been any issue. There's been 2 complaints filed, this one and the one you'll hear tomorrow. In both of those, there was either a late fee or a disconnection. Those are the only ones we're aware of. Mr. Houskeeper says, well, I want you to go out and inspect and see if there's any other late fees. We'll welcome whatever audit the division wants to do. We don't believe there really are any, and that these issues have come to the front. Let me go to the standby. The standby fee is the $15. We've acknowledged that from the time that he contacted officially the office and said that he wanted to be placed on the standby, and we've offered to go back and do that, and we've offered not to impose the penalty other than the normal tariff penalty. I'm not sure exactly still what Mr. Houskeeper is asking for, and I do think we have to be clear, because I think we need to know going forward. Are we to provide water service or not to him? Does he want to be disconnected and be at the $15, and knowing that when he does ever reconnect, there is a $100 fee for the reconnection? I think what he's asking is, leave me on disconnect status, turned off, charge me $15 a month for standby, and in the future, if I ever want water from you, I'll let you know. We're fine with that if that's what it is, but if he wants something different, we need to know so that we can properly do it. I will just notice that the testimony that was presented here today was that Mr. Jeff Schnars did go out to the property in November of 2015. He met with Mr. Houskeeper. The water was turned on. The water is now turned off, the evidence shows. Mr. Schnarr says he has not turned it off since November of 2015, and the company has not turned it off. There is in the tariff on page 4, paragraph 2, which prohibits any owner of a cabin or a lot to touch, tamper, to turn off, or turn on the meter. Mr. Houskeeper admitted that he's turned it off in violation of that tariff. It's off, and we're fine for it to stay off until he contacts us to have it turned on again. And we'll just continue billing the $15 with any correction that you feel is appropriate. As to the argument that Mr. Houskeeper makes of payments prior to November 2014, we don't show those. He thinks he did some payments before. We're unaware of it. He's never produced a copy of a canceled check. He's never produced anything showing he's made payments before then. He admitted that he was receiving water, so he has received water before, at least up to the 2015 time period he was receiving water. I think this really comes down to a point of a mistake in one of our assistants saying he couldn't go on to standby when that call was made in late May, early June. We stand ready to correct that mistake. We stand ready to help the utility make sure that they do their billings on the interest correct going forward. We don't think that it would be appropriate to impose any penalties of any type in this. We believe a correction to the account is appropriate, as we've stated, and we've offered that, but to no acceptance. But that would be our recommendation for this matter. And then if Mr. Houskeeper in the future wants any service, he can make an official written request for it, and the PUD can, or the utility can come out and make the connection and charge the appropriate fee. But I think that's where we are on with the things that have been raised by the division and that have been raised by Mr. Houskeeper. Are there any other questions or concerns, Your Honor?
I don't have any.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I'll thank the parties for their participation today, and we are adjourned.
Your Honor,
Yes, Mr. Housekeeper.
am I able just to make a couple statements on to what he had just referred to that he had brought up? He had brought up new concerns, and I just feel like
Your Honor, I don't believe I raised any new concerns and raised any issue that had not previously been addressed.
We've heard closing argument, and it sounds like there is an objection to continuing with it. I think we've got a pretty full record. You've all had an opportunity to be heard. We've got your written evidence submitted, and I think we're prepared to conclude. So, Mr. Housekeeper, thank you for participating, and the commission will take the matter under advisement. We're adjourned.
Thank you, Your Honor.